Hi folks, welcome to this week's trip. This week we're up in a place called Glen Finglas, up in the Loch, Lomond and Trossachs National Park. The plan this weekend is to walk a 19-mile trail, but we're going to do a camp overnight about 2/3 of the way around. Basically, you can see behind me is the Glen Finglas Reservoir, and behind it there's a big hill, so we're going to follow that reservoir all the way around, coming up there, and then we'll follow that hillside right along, following up round the back, and there's a high pass over there which takes you quite high. After that it's a descend, and there's a lovely little stream where there's a wee spot where I can get fresh water, pitch my tent and chill out for the night, and then we can hike back out tomorrow. Weekend's a bit cloudy and dull, and there's due to be high winds later on, but hopefully it's not too bad and we'll be plenty sheltered. So I hope you enjoy the trip this weekend, and we'll explore the glen and give you some of its history. Speak to you soon. Well, this is us about a mile into the hike up Glen Finglas, and the meal trail, which as I said earlier is about 19 miles long. It's got a little bit of everything. It's got a lot of broad-leaved woodlands, and as you can see we're just kind of passing through the edge of that, and we're going to basically start walking alongside the paved roads along the reservoir. Wildlife's spectacular around here, you know. On a good day this time of year you've got a good chance of seeing the big red deer stags which will come down from the hills, but that's usually up the quiet part of the glen, which is the top. I don't know why I'm saying quiet, because the whole glen's quiet. It's just a fantastic location. It's situated between Aberfoyle and Callander, and you pass through a small village called Brig of Tuck. Just as you come into the village there's a small tea room, green in colour, and there's a car park there if you kind of want to get yourself a cup of coffee or tea before you start your hike. Initially you're faced with maybe a mile's hike up a paved road, and after that it's just kind of walking right down the left side of the glen. There's a big, I don't know if you can see it, a big giant hill there, just kind of up there behind the cow's bum. And you'll go down the left side of that, and at the bottom of the glen you'll start climbing up really high, big winding road, lots of streams to cross. The only thing you have to watch in winter time is a lot of the time the high pass can be covered in snow, so you've got to watch you don't get caught out. There's some wee friends there to say hello to. 9 years ago when I was a bit younger, I hiked Land's End to John O'Groats, and it was 1,200 miles. It took me 2.5 months, and my backpack was ultra light and weighed about 5.5 kilograms. Hardly anything at all, and I managed to survive that. So what I've noticed about filming these videos and coming out, especially if you're doing a camp out, is major kudos to the YouTubers that do this. The amount of camera gear and equipment, it's a nightmare to someone ultralight. I actually found myself, when I arrived here, going through my backpack and dispensing with as many things I felt was unnecessary as possible. It's kind of stunning this kind of time of year. A lot of people kind of look out their window, and sometimes I think they see the rain and feel that wind on them, and their natural inclination is stick the fire on or stick their radiators on full heat and hunker down for the next 6 months. But in actual fact, as you can see if I pan round here, yeah, your colours, I don't know if you're picking it up, but your colours here are absolutely fantastic. To the west, down the direction I'll be heading initially, you've got the Loch. To the south, right at Brig of Tuck, just behind it, you've got Loch. Over to the kind of northeast, you've got Loch. and the remote Loch just to the north. And you've also got just to the east there a big mountain called Ben Ledi. Legend is that in Beltane, or for modern English speaking people, May Day, the start of the summer, it was tradition that the druids and the old folk would go up and light fires to celebrate the coming of summer. Alright, we'll speak when we're a bit further up the glen. As you can see, stunning. So this is the drone I'm using today, well this weekend, to film some footage in the glen. But there's high winds due in later on this afternoon, and already I've been trying to fly it and I'm getting high wind warnings, and it's not so cool when you're flying it over the water. You can see every so often, it's a cracking little piece of kit, but you can see it in the wind here. It's kind of struggling to hover here and moving around with it. But this is the DJI Mini 4 Pro. With all the mist, I'm not even sure you can see back down the valley or not if I point it back that way. But what I've noticed climbing this hill is how quickly you get unfit as you get older. 10 years ago, I would have ran up this hill. And I know I'm carrying a bit more weight because of all the camera gear, so I'm not exactly ultra light. But I climbed this hill here, which is just a 10-15 minute hike up. It just shows you the old phrase, use it or lose it. It's far too true. What I need to do is get my own personal manservant to follow behind me in my backpack like they did a couple of 100 years ago, and get him to film everything. Luckily we're onto the plateau, and it's Scotland in a nutshell. They say if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes. And just 5-10 minutes ago I was down there looking for red deer stags in the hillsides. I just couldn't see a bloody thing. As I'm looking up, I know it probably looks still misty to you, but compared to what it was 10-15 minutes ago, I couldn't even see a hillside or a path. It's almost a reward thing, I think, sometimes when you climb these, whether it's you're climbing a big Munro, one of the big hills down in the Lake District, even though you don't really have big hills down there, the wee tiddly hillocks. You really want to put that effort in and be rewarded with some stunning views sometimes. But hey ho, I guess that's how nature works, isn't it? As I say, I don't know how much you can see over my shoulder because I'm looking at a tiny screen on this action cam. But when I look back there, it's absolutely glorious. Although it's full of mist and the clouds there coming in, and on the little tiny screen I can see a bit of myself and just raindrops and blurry picture. But when I'm looking at it live, the Glen Finglas reservoir way in the distance, it just looks so solemn and moody. That's us over the other side of the pass now, where I get a bit wild with the wind and the rain suddenly came in. I was driving right on my back of the trousers, soaking wet. Still couldn't be bothered putting the waterproof trousers on. I'm looking forward to a nice warm brew now, but absolutely love it. I don't know why, it's like crazy. It's like you're out and you're up in the rain and the wind's hitting you hard. And it's wild conditions and your hands are freezing. And again, just like the waterproof trousers, I've got a really warm pair of Montane Gore-Tex gloves in my bag as well, but hey, you start getting your head down and you just walk and you can't be bothered putting these things on. But as I say, although it's wild and rugged and the weather's not the greatest, I kind of like it like that, you know. It's in Scotland when you go out during the summer, there's lots of other people around, and although you get great scenery and the views are stunning, you're often bothered by the dreaded midgie, which is no fun for anyone. And the great thing about coming out in the autumn or the winter, springtime, although the conditions can be a bit harsher, if you know how to look after yourself and you've got the correct gear, it's fantastic. So, final descent down here. This is a fantastic section. If you're on the mountain bikes and you come round the Mule Trail clockwise, I don't have the skill set and the level to take all these kind of gnarly tracks where you're jumping in and out of trees and a fast downhill, but something like this is absolutely great in the sense of you turn around, you can see it, you get big downhills here. So it's highly recommended if you want a day out. Right, onwards to the campsite now. We're at the campsite, cracking spot. Normally I'm just over to the side there upstream, so I found this nice little spot here, which is a tributary between two streams. You've got a bigger one coming down here, a small one down here. So time to get the tent up. Well, that's us at the base camp, and we've got the tent up as we can see. The wonderful Falravin Abisco Light 1. It's not foolproof because it doesn't take into account idiots who pitch their tent facing that way instead of that way. It'll be interesting this evening. I'm going to have to be careful, obviously. As you can see, I'm right at the stream when I come out my tent on both occasions, and there's guy lines everywhere. So good location, but this is the tent. It's kind of nice sheltered area here. It's nothing fancy to it, just a nice little one-man tent. Quite good if you want to cook. You've got the vestibule here overhang, so you can fold the door so it folds back on itself, and this is quite clever. You can, if you want to cook, you can push the inner tent in the way as well. But I'll leave it at that and get set up and get some water so I'm not doing it in the dark. Well, that's us settled in for the night. We've filtered our water. We're just going to use a little Avenue meth burner. You can see it's burning away there. And we'll get the water on if I don't spill it first. Get a wee coffee going, then we'll get the noodles on. And then we can settle down. So that's a small titanium Avenue stove. Very light. I love the meths. I just can't be bothered with gas anymore. Much prefer it. So we'll just get some hot water. We'll do it in one go. Get that boiling. That'll give me enough for the coffee. Then we'll sit back and enjoy it. Morning, folks. Well, here we are on day 2 in Glen Finglas. It's about 6:30 in the morning. Woke up at 5. With the tent blowing around quite a bit. That's what happens when winter camping. You kind of fall asleep earlier because it's dark from 4 o'clock, and you end up sort of waking up early as well. But my plans kind of changed in the sense that it seems like one of those wild mornings that's just going to stay wet for the next couple of days. So rather than sit around and wait for daylight, bored out my skull for about 2-3 hours, I'm just going to kind of pack up just now and head off, just using the head torch. But it's a decent path, so I should be fine anyway. I've got a spare head torch if anything happens as well. The only thing I didn't do was tell you some history of the Glen, the people that were here. I'd mentioned earlier on that from 1364 the glen had been taken over by the Scottish kings and used as a hunting forest with a hunting lodge here. Later on, centuries past that, there's a kind of cool old story, a bit of a legend. Whether it's true or not, I'm not sure. That there seems to be some evidence that it was, but whether the numbers involved are accurate, I'm not so sure. So just where we came from yesterday, at the foot of Ben Ledy, just to the north of it, there's a small loch-in called Loch Nan Corp, which means the loch of the corpse, loch of the dead. And back in the day in the glen, when people passed away, they obviously used to take it, the body, in a coffin over to a chapel. And in this case, in Glen Finglas, they would go on a road called the Coffin Road over a high pass, a Bielek Nancop, the Pass of the Dead, over to a place on the other side of the mountain there called St Bride's Chapel. That on their way there in heavy snowstorm and cold weather on the Coffin Road, they either get disorientated and ending up crossing the frozen Loch-in, or it was covered in snow and they just didn't see it, that the ice gave way and they all fell through and perished, some in the water, some just with exposure with the cold, and over 200 of the people ended up dying. What we do know is it was the McKinley clan, over 200 of them perished that day, and the glen was empty after that. After that, it's known that the McGregors, outlaws that they were, moved into the glen and took the land for a period of time. And then shortly after that, when they were made illegal by the Scottish kings for all their raiding and outlaws, with Rob Roy McGregor, who was known to frequent these parts, the Clan Stewart moved in and they were here for quite a while. Hope you enjoyed the video. I've got about 5-6 miles to go, get back to the vehicle, and then hopefully get a nice warm coffee down at the tea room. Speak soon. Well, that's us made it safely back to Brigaturk. I'm just going to check out to see if the Brigaturk tea room's open. Looks kind of dark, so I think I've got here a bit too early. It was a bit wild this morning. It looked as if it was going to be on all day, so I just decided to pack up in the dark, put the tent away in the pouring rain, pitch black, and headed out. It was quite safe because it was a Land Rover path and I was only walking for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and some light started coming in enough for me to turn the head torch off and to be able to see the path and where I was going okay. And I might hang around here for the Brigaturk thing here. I don't know if you can see they're close till March, so it looks like I'm not getting a coffee here this morning. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and a little adventure around Glen Finglas, and I hope it inspires you to go out yourself and visit some of these places. So as always, it'd be much appreciated if you can give us a like and a subscribe, because it will help the new channel out. And we'll see you next week for a nice adventure where Kirsty's going to join us next week, and we're going to head up to Argyll and do some footage and exploration up that way in the Kilmartin Glen. So till next week, we'll see you then.